again, Paul Norell back with you for part 2 of Blenheim, in which I'll be talking about the remaining phases of the game turn, beginning with orders, tactical movement and combat. Now, the purists out there will have noticed that the Grenadier March I used to introduce the first part of this presentation did not actually come into being until after the Marlboroughian period, but hey, so what? It's a great tune, and one that always gets my blood stirring as a Brit, albeit an expat living in New Zealand. But for this second part, I've used the well-known tune Lily Bolero, which was in use at the time. So, back to the game. Now, one of the most intriguing aspects of Blenheim is the orders system. It's uncomplicated, yet realistically simulates the uncertainty of command. Neither general knows just how many orders will be conveyed to his troops, or when his control over proceedings will suddenly come to an end for that turn. Now, the orders track is displayed here on the map. The Allies begin with a +3 modifier, the Franco-Bavarians with a +2. Now, each order given by a general requires rolling 2d6. For the order to succeed, the white die must equal or exceed the red die. For the first order, the white die is modified by +3 for the Allies and +2 for the Franco-Bavarians. Each subsequent order shifts the modifier shown here down by 1 level and consequently has an increasing chance of not getting through. And as soon as an order fails, the phase ends for that side. Now, on average, each side might get 3 or possibly 4 orders per turn, and as they can be used anywhere on the battlefield, then prioritization becomes a key issue. If playing the guaranteed first order variant, then both sides will automatically succeed for their first order, but the modifier is still reduced. And now this is an elegant mechanic which demonstrates the decreasing control a commander has the more orders are issued. Now, each order allows a unit or stack of units occupying the central hex of an area to be moved to an adjacent unoccupied area. Now, incidentally, this is the only time disrupted units may be moved, and they cannot enter a hex adjacent to an enemy unit. Now, as disrupted units are automatically eliminated if attacked on their own, you might have to use a precious order to move such a unit out of harm's way, all of which adds to the tension of decision making. Now, stacks can also relocate within the same area. Relocation has important implications for combat, which I will describe in a moment. And again, incidentally, for these 2 units to move into 2 separate hexes requires 2 separate orders. So let's have a look at some examples of combat. Let's start with infantry. Now, 2 units can stack together, and they will take their base values, which is in this case is 10, and they will add modifiers. Now, the British infantry are platoon firers, so they gain +2 each, and they have a battalion gun, denoted by the icon, which adds another 1 each. The total is halved, rounded down, and the score added to 1d6. In this example, then, the attack would go in at 10, +4 platoon firers, +2 battalion guns equals 16, divided by 2 equals 8. The defenders would gain 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Both sides now roll 1d6, with the attackers in this example gaining a net modifier of +3. Now, let's assume in this example the final result after rolling the dice is French 8, Allies 12. The difference is 4, which is halved to 2. Now, this is the number of step losses inflicted by the winner. The French could opt to take both losses on one unit and eliminate it, or take one loss on each to disrupt both. Now the defenders now inflict half the winners' casualties on the winners, meaning that the British will take a loss. However, this can be modified by a single die to either -1, 0 or +1, meaning that the winners could end up losing 2-step losses, 1-step loss, or none at all. Now, because the final difference in the combat was 4 or more, the losers would have to retreat 2 areas, and the winners can occupy the vacated area with any undisrupted units. Alright, let's take a look at cavalry now, which is dealt with similarly, but the cavalry have their own bonuses if they initiate a cavalry charge, and they can do this once per turn. Now, because the British units are designated as trotters, they like to charge at the gallop with their swords drawn. They add +3, and the French are pistoliers. They prefer firing with pistols and carbines, and they'll add 2. Now, if cavalry are attacking other cavalry, the attackers get to charge automatically, but the defenders must pass a basic order roll, using the maximum modifier for their side, to countercharge. And if successful, they neutralize the attack. British cavalry being reduced to +1 and French cavalry to 0. Now, a more effective attack is achieved by combining infantry and cavalry, and here the attack not only gets the benefit for each unit, including a cavalry charge, but an additional +4 for using combined arms, and this applies to the defender as well. Now, artillery also has bonuses and penalties depending on where they're deployed within an area. In the center hex, an artillery unit attacks with its value of 2 and defends with 3. If on the outer hex, facing the attack, it will defend at 1, but again suffers a penalty if caught on the wrong side of the attack. Now, a word about defenders. I've mentioned units being in different hexes in the areas and the penalties and bonuses that they might accrue. And here's an example of what happens. And this is where the 7-hex system that Steve Pohl has designed really comes into its own. The basic deployment has both units in the center hex, and this is where they have to be if they're going to move to another area. And this provides a good all-round defense. If, however, either unit is positioned on the outer hexes facing the attack, they'll gain a +2 modifier for each unit. But here's the snag. If the defenders are caught on the wrong side of the attack, then they incur a -2 penalty, as they're considered to be attacked in flank or rear. So the lesson here is only take up defensive formations when the flanking areas are secure. Now, if a commander is committed to a battle, he may take the better of 2 die rolls, if French or Bavarian, or the best of 3 die rolls, if Allied. A commander can commit to battle, rally disrupted units, and use strategic movement. However, if using the command focus variant rule, a commander committed to a battle cannot rally disrupted units this turn or use strategic movement next turn. Again, more decisions and more anxiety. The final 2 phases in the game turn are morale and command movement. Now, disrupted units rally automatically if a commander occupies the same area. Otherwise, they must test to see if they remain disrupted or rout. For this, the number of adjacent undisrupted enemy occupied areas comprises a negative value, while the number of undisrupted units in the testing area, together with adjacent undisrupted friendly units, comprises a positive value. One is subtracted from the other, the result modified by a single die. If the final result is 0 or positive, the unit remains where it is. If the result is negative, that number of disrupted units rout and are removed. In the final phase, commanders can use strategic movement to reach other parts of the battlefield in preparation for attacks or rallying next turn, and this is the only time that they can move. Well, that about wraps up this presentation. I haven't covered absolutely everything, but I hope it has stimulated your interest. This game certainly deserves attention, particularly as it uses a novel design which I think works extremely well. A couple of thank yous. First to Steve Pohl, the designer of the game and the 7-hex system. He's a very amenable fellow, answers questions on Board Game Geek, and he has other games in the pipeline which I for one will be looking forward to very much. Thanks also to Peter Bennett, the creator of the Vassal module for the game which I've been using in this presentation. And finally, thanks to you for watching, and I look forward to making another presentation sometime soon. Meanwhile, I shall leave you with another song of the period, Marlborough s'en va en guerre. Marlborough has gone to war. Bye for now.